It was just after 6 in the morning when I woke up, a sliver of sunlight creeping through the edge of the curtains. I blinked at the quiet stillness of our apartment and smiled to myself. Today was my birthday, but more importantly, it was the first time in years I felt excited about it, not because of gifts or a party, but because I had something special planned for Jordan. I wanted to surprise him for once. He'd done so much for me over the years. It felt like the right moment to shift the spotlight. I slipped out of bed as quietly as I could, careful not to wake him. He looked peaceful, his arm flopped over the edge of the mattress, his chest slowly rising and falling beneath the blanket. I paused a second just to look at him. Even after 3 years together, he still had that face, the one that made my stomach turn with a weird mix of love and something I couldn't name. In the kitchen, I started working. Pancakes, eggs, his favorite cold brew already chilled in the fridge. I lit a few candles around the room and placed a few Polaroids on the table. Silly ones from road trips, beach selfies, a random Halloween photo where we'd accidentally matched. I stuck a note under his mug that said, "Happy birthday to me, but you're the real gift." Cheesy, I know, but he liked that stuff more than he let on. About an hour later, I heard him groaning in bed. I rushed back in, hopping on the mattress and grinning at him. "Happy birthday to me," I whispered, brushing his messy hair off his forehead. He smiled lazily and pulled me into his arms. "Happy birthday, babe. You're up early." "I had to set the mood," I said, dragging him out of bed to the breakfast setup. He looked around, groggy at first, then softened. His eyes flickered to the photos, the candles, the food. He didn't say much, just kissed my temple and muttered, "You're unreal." We sat down, legs touching under the table, sharing bites of pancake and inside jokes. It felt warm, easy, like the kind of love that didn't need to prove anything anymore. But even as we laughed, something in his eyes kept drifting elsewhere. His phone buzzed twice, and he checked it both times. "Everything okay?" I asked. "Yeah," he said quickly. "Just my cousin. He wants me to hit the gym later." "On my birthday?" I teased. "Only for an hour, I promise. You'll have me all night." He leaned in and kissed me again. "I've got plans for you, too." I nodded, hiding the tiny pang in my chest. It wasn't that I didn't believe him. I just noticed lately that his attention came in waves. There were stretches of warmth, followed by cold spaces I didn't know how to fill. After he left, I found myself scrolling through my phone, lost in thought. The memories feature popped up, a photo from 4 years ago. Me and Mason. It hit me harder than I expected. We were at a beach bonfire, drinks in hand, stupid grins on our faces. My finger hovered over the photo. I hadn't spoken to him in ages, but something tugged. Before I could overthink it, I messaged him. "Happy birthday to me, balloons still remember our beach deal?" It was half a joke, half a test. I figured he wouldn't respond. But he did. "Of course I do. I'm in town. Want to celebrate?" My heart thudded. I stared at the screen, pulse jumping. I typed and deleted a dozen replies before settling on, "Sure, come by." It wasn't even noon yet. 10 minutes later, there was a knock at the door. I froze. I wasn't expecting him so fast. When I opened the door, there he was, Mason, standing there like no time had passed. Hair shorter now, body a little leaner, but those eyes still carried the same trouble. He smirked. "Wow, birthday balloons and everything. All this for me?" I laughed awkwardly. "No, I mean, it's my birthday." "I remember. That's why I came," he said, stepping inside without waiting. He looked around, eyes scanning the apartment slowly, like he was trying to read the story of my life from the furniture. Then he turned to me. "You look good." "So, do you," I said, heart racing. And in that moment, I knew this visit wasn't just a walk down memory lane. Mason walked through the apartment like he'd been here before, and in a way he had. Not this exact place. But he'd known me once, maybe better than anyone else ever had. He ran his hand along the edge of the kitchen counter, pausing by the birthday balloons, then turned back to me with a crooked smile. "So, this is where you ended up." I nodded. "Yeah, Jordan and I have been here almost 2 years now." He raised an eyebrow. And how's that going? The question felt heavy, and I hesitated. It's good. He's stable. Mason chuckled. Stable. That sounds like a word you use when you're trying to convince yourself. I didn't answer. Instead, I motioned for him to sit down. We took opposite sides of the couch, like two people who knew better but couldn't help themselves. I poured him some coffee, offered him a plate from breakfast, but he waved it off. You always did overdo the birthdays, he said, sipping slowly. Remember that time you made me pancakes shaped like my initials? I also remember you said they looked like roadkill. He laughed, and for a moment it felt like old times. Easy, stupid, familiar. But underneath, there was that other thing. The tension we never fully resolved. The part of us we never dared say out loud. You know, he said after long silence, I thought you'd message me again way sooner than this. I didn't think it was a good idea. I admit it, but you still did, he replied, eyes narrowing. Today. I looked at him, unsure what I wanted or why he made me feel like I couldn't think straight. I don't know what I was doing. Sure you do, he said. You always knew when it came to me. He reached out, brushing my fingers as I set down the coffee cup. The touch was light, almost casual, but it sent a charge up my arm. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. His hand lingered there, fingers slowly wrapping around mine. I miss this, he said softly. You don't even know who I am anymore. He tilted his head. I think I still do. I pulled my hand back, but it wasn't rejection. It was hesitation. My chest was tight, my thoughts messy. I glanced toward the door, like the space between it and us might offer some clarity. It didn't. You shouldn't have come, I said, even though I'd invited him. But you wanted me to, he answered. I didn't respond because the worst part was he was right. I had wanted him to come. I'd messaged him with a spark I didn't want to admit was still alive. And now it was here, in the room, breathing between us. Mason stood up, walked slowly toward me, each step deliberate. When he reached me, he didn't ask. He just leaned down, letting his forehead rest against mine. I thought about you, he whispered, more than I should have. My hand moved on its own, resting against his chest. I felt his heartbeat, steady, familiar, and mine was anything but. His lips brushed mine once, light as a sigh, the kind of kiss that asks for permission but already knows the answer. I kissed him back. It was slow, like remembering, and then it wasn't slow at all. His arms wrapped around my waist, pulling me into him, my fingers tangled in the fabric of his shirt. Everything about him came rushing back. The way he held me, the way he moved, the way he always made me feel like I was the only person that existed. The world faded. It was just the two of us, sinking into something we never finished. And for a while, I let myself forget the rest of the world. I let myself want. Afterward, we sat side by side on the couch. He was breathing softly, shirt wrinkled, hair tousled. I stared at the ceiling, guilt starting to bleed into my skin like ink in water. I shouldn't have come, he said finally. Maybe not, I whispered, but I'm glad you did. He stood up, smoothing his shirt, looking around like he was already erasing himself from the space. Jordan still doesn't know about us, huh? No, I said quietly, and he won't. I didn't answer. My phone buzzed. I reached for it with trembling fingers. Jordan, heading home early, got done faster. Be there in 15. Can't wait to see you, Redheart. I stared at the message. Throat dry. Mason saw my face, nodded once like he already knew. Should I go? He asked. I nodded. He walked to the door, paused, and looked back. Happy birthday, Ryan. And then he was gone. The door clicked shut behind Mason, and for a long moment, I just stood there, frozen. The room still smelled like him, faint citrus and that leather cologne he used to wear. I moved to the window and watched as he walked down the street, hands in his pockets, shoulders tense. He didn't look back. I should have felt something clear, regret, clarity, relief, but everything inside me was a blur. I walked into the kitchen, wiped the counter where he'd leaned, picked up the coffee cup he didn't finish, and toss the remaining pancakes in the trash. The balloons looked ridiculous now. The candles had melted halfway down, flickering in a silence that felt heavier than the room. I rushed to the bathroom and splashed water on my face. My reflection stared back at me, red-eyed, guilty, confused. I didn't know who I was in that moment. A boyfriend, a cheater, or just someone who had no idea what he wanted anymore. 15 minutes passed too quickly. I barely had time to spray the room, fix my shirt, and sit down on the couch before the lock turned. Jordan walked in with that big grin of his, holding a small paper bag and something hidden behind his back. "Someone's glowing," he said teasingly. "Was the birthday morning that good?" I forced a chuckle. "Yeah, it was perfect." He walked over and kissed me on the forehead, then handed me the bag. Inside was my favorite pastry from a cafe downtown. And then, as I took it out, he pulled a small box from behind his back and handed it to me, shyly. "What's this?" I asked, my heart suddenly pounding again, but for a different reason. "Just open it," he said. I lifted the lid. Inside was a simple silver band, nothing flashy. Engraved on the inside were the words, "Still yours." "It's not a proposal," he added quickly, kneeling on one knee more out of mischief than tradition. "It's just a promise that no matter what happens, I'm here for the long haul." I stared at the ring, my throat tightening so much I could barely swallow. "Ryan, you okay?" he asked, tilting his head. I nodded, but I couldn't speak. The pastry bag crinkled in my hand. I felt like I was about to cry, but not because I was happy, because I knew what I had just done, because he didn't, and because he might never. He stood up and wrapped his arms around me, holding me close. "You're quiet. That's rare." I buried my face in his shoulder, just long enough to gather myself. "You always know how to make me feel loved." "You are loved," he whispered, "even when you don't see it." Later that evening, we ate together. He lit the last 2 candles on the cake I'd bought, and we sang quietly, laughing at how off-key we both were. We watched a movie on the couch. Same spot Mason had been on just hours earlier. My skin still remembered it, but I tried to drown out with popcorn, with laughter, with every second I could steal without breaking down. At one point, Jordan fell asleep with his head in my lap. I stared at the ceiling, my hand brushing through his hair, trying to remember the version of myself who didn't lie, who didn't cheat. But he felt safe there, resting against me, trusting me without hesitation. And I had broken something. Even if he never knew it, I had broken it. I picked up the small silver ring box again, opened it, and stared at the word inside. "Still yours." But was I? That night, as we lay in bed, I didn't sleep. I listened to his breathing, watched the shadows shift across the room, and thought about how everything can feel right and wrong at the same time. How love and betrayal can exist within the same person. I thought about Mason's touch, and I thought about Jordan's promise. In the end, I didn't confess. I didn't change the ending. I just lived with it. And when Jordan stirred in his sleep and pulled me closer, murmuring, "Love you," in his half-dreamed voice, I whispered back, "I love you too." But even as I said it, I knew something had changed. Not on the surface, but underneath, quiet and deep, the kind of shift you feel before the ground gives way. Because he gave me his trust. And I gave him a memory I could never take back.